Hey guys, good morning. This is Dawn and David at Body by Dawn, and today I have with me Stu Peters, who is a chiropractor here locally, and we're going to talk to him about suggestions and ideas and things to do to recover, and why recovery is so important. Because we've talked in the studio about how we need to recover as hard as we work out, and I'm very guilty of not doing that. I know you probably have been in the past, probably better about it now.
Yes.
But it can cause problems if you're not, really recovering well and doing stretching and letting you come in, somebody like you, let them adjust them.
Body work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so tell us a little bit about yourself, Stu.
Okay, I'm a chiropractic physician. Been one since 07. I moved to this area. Just really loved the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area. Great diversity and educated folks. And before I became a chiropractor, I was in the Marine Corps and beat my body up pretty well, and then went to the medical physicians with the Navy, and they were giving me the typical 800 milligram Motrin, which it just didn't make sense to me. Exactly, I had a mechanical injury, and they were using chemistry to fix it. Just didn't line up in my head. And I've been a fit person, worked out, competed in powerlifting, and I couldn't go back to the gym. I was in so much pain, and so someone suggested I go see a chiropractor, and I'm like, oh, what's a chiropractor? And they're like, oh, they work on backs and necks, and I was like, well, I'll do anything. I just want to be back in the gym and be healthy again. So what do you do when you're in your early 20s? You call your mom. Should I go see a chiropractor? And she was like, well, I've seen one after a car accident. So she sent me to one, and he just really broke down what chiropractic is as a profession, and what he was going to do to help me kind of realign my joints and calm down my nervous system, so I can get back to the gym and strengthen the muscles around the joints to kind of keep me in good order.
Exactly.
It just made sense to me. I wasn't educated in really health other than working out, and but his explanation just resonated with me, and then I started asking questions like, well, what do you have to do to get into this? And leaving the military, a lot of my friends either went two routes: healthcare or law enforcement. And I was done carrying a weapon for work, and I was like, all right. And I had a lot of friends who were in healthcare, respiratory therapists and occupational therapists and PTs, and so I just started asking around, like, what do you do? What do you like about your profession? And initially went the occupational therapy route, and went to school for occupational therapy at James Madison, and then still seeing my chiropractor regularly, just to kind of stay loose and limber and feeling good. I actually felt better after I recovered from my injury. I felt like I was getting more accomplished in the gym. So I just kind of said, all right, well, I'm finishing my undergrad, let's apply to graduate school. So I went on and just kind of delved more into the human biomechanics and physiology, pathology. Nutrition was a big part of our curriculum, like at least 10 quarters of nutrition.
Nice.
And that started like our third quarter, and like you would hear the rumors like, oh, wait till you get to third quarter, you're gonna change completely how you eat. And I'm like, I eat pretty healthy, right? And then you get in there and they start talking about inflammation and foods that are pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory, foods that promote healing, and foods that promote sickness. And so I remember cleaning out my refrigerator and really changing my lifestyle. And my roommate at the time, he was a bodybuilder, right? So he had to have his stuff on one half of the refrigerator. And it was like the stuff that had back in the day, it was like Crystal Light, which had aspartame, Diet Dr. Pepper, right? He was more watching his calories, eating a lot of protein, and I was about, that has chemicals in it.
Right.
So water, tea that's fresh brewed, or ginger or something like that. And
it's interesting because now we're trying to kind of melt those two together, and sometimes it is hard to do, to be honest with you, because we train competitors out of our studio, and then trying to also navigate, because we know that all these things are causing inflammation, they're causing cancer, all these kind of things. So it's difficult.
And so as far as recovery goes, there's a lot of different little hacks or little things you should focus on, right? If you just focused on nutrition and didn't focus on your sleep or your stress management or your body work, right?
Yeah.
If you put all your eggs in that one basket, you're probably missing out on these other things. So really, like, having a little bit of a lot of recovery methods is probably better than just having one.
Yeah.
But nutrition is obviously, one of my sayings used to be, you are what you eat.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to be lean like steak, eat steak. If you want to be fluffy like cake, eat cake. Right? Just simple.
Yeah, that's
I like the flow.
Yeah.
But with the clientele that you deal with the bodybuilding, figure competing, right? You're really looking at their macros, right, and making sure that you're feeding their muscles, not feeding their fat, right? And that's really sport specific, right? If you were working with a marathon runner, you probably would not feed them the same way you would feed a bodybuilder.
That's right.
It wouldn't
That's
serve
right.
them,
No.
and neither would you feed your bodybuilder like a marathoner.
Exactly.
It wouldn't serve them, right? So some of this is individual basis and goal specific, sport specific, but we can learn from those different different communities, right? The bodybuilders, they get shredded, right? And that's amazing, and they tweak that nutrition to get a result,
Right.
And I'm sure with all your past experience, what works for that. Now, if we said, is that the day of the competition, are they at their healthiest?
I tell them all the time, they're not. You're going to be your weakest.
You're probably about
and
to pass.
and they're not healthy at all at that
Right.
point. But again, I tell them, and we go there, we just and then
And
pull
then
back.
back
Yes.
off, right.
So then, exactly.
It's hard to maintain that level.
And it's not healthy to maintain that. Yeah.
Right.
With that in mind, we also train, quite a few, the majority of our population at the studio too is older clientele in their 50s, 60s, some of them in their 70s. Definitely, getting up there where we're starting to all feel the joints. We're starting to feel the knee pain, the back pain, the shoulder pain, all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I find that we struggle with, and I know David's clients, same things, like, right out of the gate, they're already coming in the door telling us, my knee hurts, my this hurts, my that hurts. So they want to avoid doing those things. And we're trying to encourage them to know we need to do them because you need to support and grow the muscle around those joints so that they can then do the work instead of the joint doing all the work. I think the problem is because their diets are probably not where they need to be, they're coming in with that extra inflammation anyway, then we're trying to work it out and the muscles weak, and so then they're starting to hurt a little more, so they're thinking, this is bad for me, I need to back off. When really, according to what you said too, anti-inflammatory foods too, right? So
movement is medicine, right?
Yeah,
They need to push that inflammation out and get those muscles stronger. And I think, through some conflicting past messaging, from our healthcare system, if you're hurting, you should stop moving, right? And that we know through research now that's not accurate, right?
Exactly.
Movement is medicine, and having an approach where we're going to move it in a safe manner. That's why you're coming to a gym, to use proper mechanics to balance out those muscle imbalances. But also on the back end of that, if we can clean up your nutrition where you're eating more anti-inflammatory foods, less pro-inflammatory foods, it's going to help you. But everyone hates that it takes time.
It does. It's a slow
They're not
process.
patient. They're like, well, if I eat like this tomorrow, I'm going to be out of pain tomorrow.
Look, I've had people say this. I had a lady say this to me not too long ago. I kept trying to encourage her to cut alcohol from her diet because we know that alcohol definitely causes so much inflammation in the body. And the response was basically, well, I've had wine every day of my life for the last 20 years or whatever, so it doesn't really affect me that way. But I said, but you have joint pain. She said, no, I'm fine. I said, well, you literally just spent 10 minutes in the beginning of this telling me that your shoulder hurts, your knee hurts, and said, you've got all this joint pain. And then she kind of looked at me like, oh, yeah, I did. I'm like, well, how about we cut the alcohol out? So she did, actually, not initially. It took her a while before she would do it. And she cut it out for about a week, and that was it. And she
yeah.
said, well, I
Didn't see enough
didn't
change.
see the change.
She probably
It
did
was like
feel
a
different.
week.
She probably slept was sleeping better because
Mhm.
alcohol
does.
disrupts your sleep.
Mhm.
And most of the time when you're having that glass of wine, it's probably in the evening time,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So you might fall asleep, but you're gonna wake up with, you have this interrupted sleep, which just isn't good for the processes that take place while we're asleep that are
Yes.
healing us and cleaning
Exactly.
up those toxins and inflammation through autophagy and cell repair and all this. It is being disrupted, and they just haven't lived that lifestyle long enough to
Exactly.
notice the difference, where the
Yes.
difference is like so like, oh my goodness, like this feels so much better than having that glass of wine.
That's exactly right.
So you just have to.
That's why
you
it's
just have
over
to
time, though, like you said,
Right.
right? It's like you're not holding out long enough to actually
see
see
the difference.
what it can do for you. But I know that even just overnight, if I ever have a glass of wine and then go to bed, I can tell you right now, I wake up the next morning and my fingers are swollen. They're puffy. Like I feel from one glass of wine, I can feel that inflammation all over my body. Now, granted, I do have an autoimmune disorder. I have RA, so that
It's
this
gonna
could be
exacerbate
more.
it.
But if you do have things like that, you really need to avoid that kind of thing, right? So not.
We know that unfortunately people get upset with this, that there's just no nutritional value with alcohol.
Right.
People like say, well, if I do really good wine and with
Resveratrol.
resveratrol.
Now that's been debunked, so.
Yeah, but still it's a neurotoxin, right?
Yeah.
It literally, you can't, you're impaired to drive on your own. So it's,
Yeah.
you're probably impaired to heal
wow.
on it. And so you just have to, as a treat, maybe okay, but it should not be the normal in your diet. And that's with a lot of foods, right? Oh, you mean I can't have cake anymore? Well, you can have cake, and if you want to make it yourself, you're probably better off. But if you're going to have that store-bought cake, it better be like once a year, like your birthday.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, I'm going to have this every night or every week.
Wow.
Right? It's just not. Your behaviors aren't matching what you say your goals.
That's exactly right.
Right.
I want to backtrack for a minute and go back to anti-inflammatory foods. So when a client comes into you and says that they're suffering with, these joint issues, whatever, what are the foods that, maybe the top 5 that you would recommend for anti-inflammatory type foods?
Yeah, well, my first approach is actually eliminating probably certain things from the diet that we just know are pro-inflammatory. Obviously we know that grains, especially the grains grown in the U.S., genetically modified to withstand some of the pesticides and things that we put on it. I think we know pretty well that it's inflammatory and that bothers us. If anyone's ever gone out of the country and eaten pasta in Italy versus the pasta here, you probably felt completely different. And that's happened to me personally. So grains would be out. Any food really that has a label. Because a label is a warning. If you shop the perimeter of the grocery store and you're buying just a solo apple or some meat or something, in the perimeter, those things if they have a label, it's just to kind of keep them from getting dirty or whatever. But they usually only have one ingredient, right? And that's like, oh, we know. But if I walk into an apple, I know it's an apple. It's been time tested. Humans have been eating it for years. It doesn't require a label. And I know that's a health food that I can eat that's more than likely anti-inflammatory. But anything in the aisles that has a label that has multiple ingredients in it, that label is there because the onus is on you to know what you're putting in your body. If you eat that and all of a sudden you have a horrible allergic attack and you go to that company, you're like, your food made me sick. They're going to be like, well, we had a warning on it. It has a label with all the ingredients. You chose to buy it and eat it. The onus is on you. So really, a label is a warning of here's the ingredient. This is a disclaimer. And it's on you to know what you're putting in your body, or if you have an allergy to that, which I think a lot of people have sensitivities to a lot of those chemicals. And a lot of those things that's going on right now with Make America Healthy Again is trying to get rid of some of these additives that other countries have outlawed. Right? So they've done the legwork to say this is not good for us. We do not want our people eating it. But somehow in the U.S.
we just let it go.
We've added more. and more. I mean, if we had an opportunity to go back and look at some of the processed food that we ate as kids versus now, the ingredients wouldn't even look the same.
I just was reading something on that the other day, and I forgot who had posted. It was one of the doctors that I follow, and he was actually showing the picture of Gatorade.
Oh yeah, the glass bottle.
Because the excuse is, oh, I ate that growing up, or oh, I drank that growing up, so I am fine. But the label on his said no, you didn't, because it says Gatorade, and then it tells the ingredients that were in it. It was like sugar, but the others were like all these names that you can't pronounce them. But it's still Gatorade, but it's not.
It tastes the same. It tastes the same, but the ingredients are the same.
Yeah.
So we have chemists and scientists that doctor ingredients to taste like food.
Wow.
Some of these things should, what I've heard called is like, they're food-like substances.
Yeah.
They're not food.
Right.
Like growing up too, like I love, and I don't eat this anymore, Kraft sliced cheese. Right? If I was a kid, I'd go get 4 or 5 of those out of the pack, fold it up, and eat it all the time.
Oh, you were that one.
If you go and look at that packet of Kraft, it's not called cheese. They're not even allowed to put cheese.
Oh, product.
It's called singles. Kraft singles.
I remember singles. Yeah,
it's singles.
Yep.
Because they can't even write cheese on it because the product is not 50% cheese.
Yeah.
So it's less than 50% cheese. That should just bother some parents that are kids that are sort of growing that down. My kids do not like cheese. So I'm like, you're strange, but I'm like, good, then you won't eat those singles.
I will say that the singles did taste different to me than when you cut your own. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was just something kind of metalish about it. But when you're young, you just eat, you go out and play.
And it was quick, right?
It
was convenient food.
And then the fact it's in plastic and you can keep it forever because it just comes in that plastic. Right.
We're trading the convenience though for health.
Yeah, and that's really when we were growing up. I'm almost 50, so in that time frame, my mom and dad both worked, and my mom I remember getting the first microwave, and it just made my mom's life more convenient to buy now the Salisbury steak that you get peel a little plastic bag and put in the microwave. I remember Monday through Friday what I ate as a kid because it was standard, right? Yeah. And my mom was doing the best she could. And back then, some of that food wasn't quite what it is now. But if you look at the food industry, they're a corporation, and how corporations work, they want to make more money this year than last year, and then every year it's like that. After a while, they have all the logistics down pat. They have the packaging down pat. It gets to the point where how are you going to cut costs to make more money? You either have to sell more product, or you have to make your product cheaper.
Right.
So they take out one ingredient and they add 2 of these artificial ingredients that makes up for that one. But it's cheaper to put these 2 in than to have this one. And then they do that, and that's why the list of ingredients grows and grows and grows every year. Even though those things really are not great for our health. Our body can't identify that. When you eat an apple, our body knows what an apple is.
Right.
When you eat something with 17 different ingredients that we can't even pronounce, when you put it in, the body's like, I don't even quite know what this is. So it goes into protection mode. That's where the inflammation comes in, right? And there's a good, inflammation isn't bad, right? It's there to help us. It repairs our tissues after a hard workout. So it also fights off foreign invaders. And so if you're bombarding your system with inflammation through to food, stress, and then working out on top of it, you're actually having this megadose of inflammation in your body. It overwhelms your body, right? It doesn't heal that way. Or if you're trying to meet your goals in the gym and you're tearing your body down and causing an inflammatory reaction of working out, these other things that cause inflammation in our body aren't helping repair.
And then we reach for our Advil, like your doctor told you, and we take that to try to counterbalance it instead of continuing on with something like maybe.
That's the worst thing you can do.
Exactly.
For exercise soreness, really for injury in general. I think some of the research has come out now where it shows that, ibuprofen, acetaminophen. All medications are inhibitors. They stop a process, right? Inflammation is a process that needs to run its course and be facilitated.
Right.
And so you hear people say, well, like instead of ibuprofen, can I take fish oil or turmeric or sage or thyme? Any of these herbs that are
that was going to be my next point. Is turmeric especially.
They are inflammation modulators.
Right.
Right. So they're not roadblocks like ibuprofen that says inflammation stop. And the inflammation's like, are we ever gonna start again? What are we doing here? Like, it's a process that's been started, but now you're telling me to stop. And they're like, well, you just wait until, I'm out of your system, right? And that unfinished process has to go somewhere.
Right.
And typically it's an unfinished process. Your body's like, I'm confused by this.
Yeah.
Right? The turmeric and the sage and the fish oil, they're like road guards that say inflammation right this way. I need you to go over here, inflammation. I need this cytokine to go over here, fix this and this over here. They guide that process and complete the process of healing. There's phases of healing, regardless if it's exercise, tear, breakdown of the muscle, or you rolled your ankle, right? Your body's got to put inflammatory cells there that builds the tissue back up.
Right.
And then there's remodeling that goes on. Another set of cells come in, and they're like the fine. You build a house. You're gonna frame it up. It's not fine work. It's framing work, right? And then you got the cabinet guys and the specialists come in to do the tile and everything else. Those are the cells that come in and model and fine tune everything. So it's a functional tissue again, a functional muscle again, a functional tendon and ligament. If you stop that inflammation process, what they've seen is that the rebuilding phase, like all this material gets there, but the remodeling doesn't occur.
Right.
So the tissue is dysfunctional after that, and you're probably going to injure that site again.
Right.
And some of even putting ice on things, they've said slows down that process and could inhibit the remodeling phase.
I wanted to touch on that a little bit because I just had a discussion with another health coach out in California who was talking about, we get into all the ice plunge stuff, right? And like, oh, this is so good for us, whatever. And then, heat versus the cold, and there's arguments on both sides of that, but he said he had originally gone to school for physical therapy, and he said they're now going back and telling the physical therapists that we no longer want to do, don't ice it anymore.
Wow.
That's the newest studies are showing us that we don't want to, and that one through us said, do what? Are you serious? He said, yeah, because it used to be, you have an injury, first thing we do is put ice on it.
Right. Ice, compress.
And that's what I said to him. I said, rice is out the window. He's like, yeah pretty much. I said, well, how does this work then? Like, what do we do? So for us, if we have an injury in the studio, what's the best thing we could do if somebody rolls their ankle while we're training them? If they, something happens to them while they're working out, we don't go for that ice pack anymore.
Elevate and compress, get them home.
Wrap it up.
I've wanted to speak to more practitioners about, after an injury or after surgery, right? When I had my knee scoped, I got one of those little circulating ice thing, and it was wonderful to keep you out of pain. Now, I don't know if that inhibited some of the healing process, but ice is going to numb something up. It's going to take away pain, and I think that's the benefit that people receive. And you could say too that it kind of slows down the collateral damage. It isolates the inflammation a little more, so it's not getting into other tissues and causing issues. But from what I hear and read, the heat is the way to go. Now, ice plunging, there's some benefits, I think, with ice plunging, that if you're doing it not for necessarily injury or recovery, right, but for resiliency, right? You don't want to get in there, but I'm going to make myself get in there.
So it's almost more character building than anything else, right?
There's a part of your brain that will actually, when you choose to do something that you're really resistive of, part of that brain, your brain grows.
Yes.
And if you only do things that you want to do, that area of the brain shrinks.
Yeah.
There's some interesting, research out with that.
I heard Dr. Mark Hyman speak on that one before.
And Dr. Andrew Huberman,
yeah.
Stanford. Also with the cold, it produces more brown fat, which is a metabolic fat that actually helps your body versus a fat that like a white adipose that aesthetically people don't want.
Yes.
And it doesn't metabolically do anything. It actually probably raises your estrogen levels a little bit too. So there's even a fat production that's a healthier fat that the cold insulates you better. But I think really the resilient thing is doing uncomfortable things.
Yes.
And I don't think it should be comfortable, right? After a while you're going to get kind of used to it.
Yeah.
So can you do something else to elevate the not the actual discomfort in the moment, but the desire not to want to do it.
Right, to shy away from things that are hard or difficult. We talk about that a lot because
It's
that
really
we
easy. It's
do.
a
That's
path of
what we
least
have to do as
resistance.
trainers is really get people beyond that. That's why they hire us because it
And
really
it's
is
so
sometimes just stopping.
they're living in the uncomfortable zone for a long time. It's short bursts of it. Even like in the cold plunge, you're really like, I think 4 minutes is about the max. But you'll see people online like doing it for 12 minutes. And like you've missed the benefit. Like you could have been spending that extra 8 minutes doing something else that's beneficial instead of just being tough.
Or maybe get in the sun. The heat. So heat, if we switch to heat, then what does that do? So, the heat therapy, talk about that a little bit and like why would we want to do heat therapy? What
Increases
does that do for
blood
us?
flow, provides more nutrients to tissues, carries more oxygen. The research out there is pretty wild as far as like one modality that as far as reducing all-cause mortality rate. Like there's doing like sauna 60 to 90 minutes a week reduces your all-cause mortality, dying from anything by like 30%. You don't, other than exercise, because exercise is the number one. The number one modality for longevity, right? For resiliency, for your health. There's nothing better you can do than exercise. But research is showing now, like sauna is like the next piece. You think just circulate. It's passive too, right? It's not like, oh, I got 10 more sets of something. Right. You just get to lay there. But it's challenging. If you've ever been in a sauna and it's like 180 or above, like after about 20 minutes, you're like, I want to die. Right. And I always feel like, hang in 5 more minutes. And then I get to that 25-minute mark, I'm like, hang in for 5. It's the last 5 minutes that really counts. Right? It's not the first 10 that's like, oh, this is kind of nice. Right? Obviously, you don't want, if you have health conditions, you need to be mindful of sauna because it is draining. I have like stumbled out of saunas before, like slightly hallucinated. Like I think it's spent way too much time. It was like, 60 minutes a week. I bet you I can get that in one session. Not good. Not good to try.
Overachieving.
I can cram it. It's about time. Right? Everything's about time. Either like maximizing time or like I wish this would happen faster. That's what people hate, right? Either it takes too much time or and they don't have the patience to wait for those results. But the best things come to people who wait.
So both of those modalities are good, right? So cold and hot.
Cold and hot for their own specific.
Like in a week's time, how often would you do maybe each of those?
So here, in everything I'm saying today, the majority is my opinion and everything that I've read and been educated on in my past. And I tweak things specifically for me. Literally, like I think it was like over 25 years ago, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was a meathead in the gym all the time, and there was a retired Marine that operated one of the gyms, and he was fantastically in shape, just a ripped guy, super nice guy, and would always like just give you any bit of help or motivation or little insights that he could. And I remember him saying, I do contrast showers. Like contrast showers. I turn on hot for a bit, and I turn on cold for a minute, and I go back and forth. It helps with the healing process. This was 25, 30 years ago. cold and heat wasn't really written about in my
Right.
life. I'm
Yeah.
sure someone out there knew all
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But I was doing that in my 20s, thinking about the circulation of things, right?
Sure.
The cold kind of constricts and pushes things away, and then the heat opens up. So I think there's a value of that increasing circulation, and that's our life, our blood, the oxygen in our body. That's what, and then the water. We're like 70% water.
Let me chase a rabbit for a second. So we have people coming into the studio. Half the time, half of the class is complaining it's too hot. The other half is complaining it's too cold. So if you had to go one way or the other, what would be the best environment to work out in? Would it be one that's slightly on the hot side or
I think it's
on the cold
perfect
side?
for both of them because it's uncomfortable for both groups of people.
It's
So
so
just
good.
work out, and they'll forget about
So
the
put the
temperature.
people who are
If you're working hard enough, they'll forget about the
put the
temperature.
people who are hot on the hot side of the room. Put people who are cold on the cold side of the room.
That's what you should do.
Yeah,
Then they build
alternate.
tolerance. Then they build tolerance. And then their cool down, you can switch it up, right? You
Yeah,
send
there you go.
the colder nature people to the heat, and
I like that.
you cool the.
Well, I asked that because there's so many, we've got these hot yoga studios, and then now you've got, everybody's doing the cold plunges and it's like, okay, so where we better, in my mind at least, I've always said, well, we warm up for a reason because we're trying to get things loosened up and, able to move before we work out. So I don't know why you would want to be cold or cool while you're trying to work out. Like, to me, you don't want to get overheated.
Yeah.
But at the same point in time, like, do we really need this room to be, frigidly cold so that you don't drop a piece of sweat,
Yeah, no, I would think, I'm an advocate of warming up and getting blood flow going prior to exercise, right? But even though there's, experts and studies that say like, oh, you get in the cold plunge and then warm up,
To me, that just tightens everything up. Everything to me just is like
constricts, right? And I do think like you should be saturating all your tissues before you exercise, right? If you come in cold and you start working out and you're not prepared, and some of those tissues are dry just from being sedentary or sleeping the night before, you run the risk of tearing something. Right?
Okay.
And I use this analogy with my patients a lot. Your body's like a sponge, right? If you have a dry sponge on the sink, on the edge of the sink, it's brittle, right? You can probably break it or tear it in two. But if you took that sponge before you tried to break it and put it under the water and kneaded it, now you can stretch that sponge and pull it and turn it. It's more resilient. So first, my morning routine is get water in my system with a little sea salt and then mobilize. I roll out on a foam roll and do some windshield wipers because laying there at night, and this is what I perceive when I'm laying there, and then in the morning I go to bed somewhat loose, and then I get up in the morning I'm a little stiff. Right? So I feel like my sponge has been sitting out on the edge of the counter all night, and the first thing I have to do is get water in my system and then knead that sponge. And then I can just get up and do, like, brush my teeth without being like, oh, my back is so stiff.
It's a great analogy.
And that
Good
too,
point.
that
And because
too,
the first thing I go for in the morning is coffee, and I'll drink my water after that. But I probably should flip that around and do my water first, which I know a lot of people do. But yeah.
And I know Andrew Huberman says like to try to hold off on your caffeine for like 60 to 90 minutes because it helps regulate your sleep a little better. So I used to get up and do caffeine right away too, and then I started pushing it back a little bit. And even my wife switched to decaf first before she gets her caffeinated about it.
Oh, really?
Just to help us sleep. But again, our first thing is getting the water in the system, kneading, getting the sponge saturated and then kneading it a little bit just for daily activity. Now, if I'm gonna go work out after that, I'm gonna do even more to prepare the tissue for working out. But that's just my normal routine, and which I've shrank that little mobility session down to like 5 to 7 minutes, so I can go brush my teeth or take a shower without feeling like, oh, I'm like doing an evaluation of my body pain.
Yeah.
If I do the 5-minute, 7-minute foam roll first, I don't even think about my body. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm like, all right, I got the day coming and preparing for that. But if I don't do that 5 minutes, I'm standing at the counter like,
There's so many rabbit holes I could go down because as you're talking, I'm going, oh, water. What kind of water do we do? Do we do this kind of water or do that kind of water? I just got a big shipment from what is it? LMT. This morning when you were here, I got a huge shipment of that stuff that they had just said for us to give to smart for our folks to let
Right.
them try it out. Is
For
that something
hydration.
like you use? Or do you just put salt in your water? Like,
I tend to just like, so there's times where I would use a electrolyte supplement, like if it's middle of the summer and I'm gonna do a workout outside, or I'm gonna, go for a trail hike, and I want to make sure that I'm absorbing max amount of water. But just normal daily routine, I get up, I have some really quality sea salt, I'm gonna fill my water up, I'll put a dash of that in. I put a little bit of apple cider vinegar and a little bit of lemon juice in there to feed my gut biome, because that's important for your overall health.
That's right.
Get a little prebiotic in there, and it just makes me, that's my routine. It's quick.
gosh, you
it's
see how
easy.
many holes we can go
Yes.
down? It's like,
Is
oh,
it that
God,
Bragg's
this is-
vinegar? Is that vinegar?
Yes.
Yeah, the Bragg's vinegar, yeah.
And so going back really quick to the cold plunge and the heat. Funny enough, we got a cold plunge a couple years ago, and we used the cold in the wintertime outside.
Okay.
And that's just, we got it for Christmas. So we had it during the cold part of the year, and we used it. And then when the summer got here, I was like, I don't mind getting in here. And I was like, it's not worth doing.
It's not, yeah.
So I folded up for the summer, and I did more sauna in the summer, because you're trying to tolerate yourself to the current.
Yes,
right?
that's right.
So I feel like where most people would be like, oh, I'd love to do the cold plunge in the summertime.
Yeah,
Right.
And
it's
the
like
heat
just
in
sitting in the
winter.
air conditioning.
Right.
So I try to do the opposite of that. When it's
Okay.
cold, I try to do more cold, and when it's hot, I do more hot. And I'm not necessarily doing the cold for an injury or anything like that. I'm more for resilience and that's uncomfortable. I need to do more of that. And honestly, my wife motivates me. She's like, I'm going out to do the cold plunge. I'm like, oh, I could just sit here and read a little longer.
Yeah,
She's
well,
like,
she's
she's
really
got her
not
suit
gonna
on,
do
and I
that.
hear her like downstairs open the sliding glass doors. I'm like, oh God. So then I had to get up. And she will actually, we have a hot tub, so she gets in the hot tub first, which I say is cheating. I'm like, that's cheating.
Right.
And I'm the first one in the plunge.
Okay.
After about 30 seconds of meditation. Put my foot in, I'm like, oh God, it's horrible. But it's rejuvenating afterwards. I'm so happy that I did that.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm excited to get in the hot tub afterwards. I'm like, oh God, this is so good. And then she's like tipping toeing out and getting in the cold. But so she motivates me to kind of keep up the consistency of that.
Sure.
She's a good partner that way.
So what, as far as in the routine of that, you're talking about getting into, your morning routines. Where in that routine would you recommend, or do you do foam rolling? So is that going to be before your plunge, after your plunge,
Before.
and workout wise, before your workout, after your workout?
Yeah. But before first thing in the morning, I get up and do that. The roller is under my bed, and that's just for me specifically. Like I said, that the back injuries that I had in the Marine Corps and the wear and tear on my body. If I don't do that little bit of foam rolling to get that sponge needed, I am like, my mind is occupied with evaluating how many parts of my body is hurting.
Right.
But after that 5 minute of foam rolling, like I'm able to down regulate those signals of hey, this is not feeling so great. And I feel like it's the more the blood flow I get in there, the tissue just feels better and I move better. I'm not stiff, and so that allows me to focus on now the cold plunge or the heat, and I don't have to think about like, oh, this ache or ache or pain necessarily. Prior to exercise, I try to any parts of my body that are yapping at me, I'm gonna try to down regulate that with a little foam rolling.
Yeah.
If I really have like an asymmetry of motion, right? Like one shoulder is super tight and I'm about to do bench press, I'm probably gonna mobilize that shoulder a little bit more than someone who has symmetrical mobility.
Right.
They might just do more dynamic working, warming up before they bench press. But I know this is that first few sets are gonna feel awkward because of the imbalance. I need to loosen this one up more. So I'll spend a little more time on certain things, mobilizing prior to exercise. But I'm still probably gonna do some dynamic stuff after that to then re-engage all the muscles. And now I feel ready for that movement and more mobility, right? Because there's some arguments that you shouldn't static stretch prior to exercise because it decreases power. But I think if if you do the static stretching because you have a real imbalance that you need to straighten out before you get started, then doing the dynamic warm up helps. Like yesterday, like I did my stretching my shoulder head bench press, and I did some mace, overhead mace, and then my partner and I did battle ropes, 25 seconds on, 5 second switch. He went, and I held a plank while he was going at the battle ropes. And that just, when we'll move the ropes in all different directions, just to dynamically warm the shoulder up. And then afterwards, I'm like, okay, things feel nice and even. Now I can bench press without thinking like something doesn't feel right, right? And so I put more of that emphasis on like warming up and cooling down than I do now on a bench work. 25 years ago, I'd have been in there benching for an hour straight. Now it's like 20 minutes of warming up, 10 to 15 minutes of bench press.
That was going to be my next point is like, we talk about this where we go, okay, well, let's roll beforehand and do this beforehand, and then we work out, and then we got to stretch. And people are listening to it going, I don't have that much time in my day. I've got an hour to go work out. What am I going to do? Do I do this or do I do that? I got to pick because I only have so it's tough because you have to kind of make sure that you kind of squeeze it, condense it all in there. So maybe when they're foam rolling, they should, if they're going to foam roll beforehand, they're targeting more what is a problem area or an injury area, not just, okay, I got to roll my whole body before I start, stretch my whole body before I start, and then work out and do it all.
Individual, if you're working with groups, it's hard to really pinpoint what everyone needs. We're trying to give them a general warm up. But if you do break off and work with them one-on-one and you see them struggling because of an imbalance, maybe suggest them to come in 5 minutes early and let you kind of show them what to roll out first, and then they can join in on the dynamic warm up and be more prepared. And that imbalance is not impeding the progress while they're actually exercising. They have to, you have to, and they have to acknowledge how important it is to fix that imbalance before they start really putting a lot of intensity into their exercise, and that could cause an injury. And most of the stuff that I'm talking about is like I have lived it or experienced it myself.
So really, instead of avoiding the exercises like we talked about earlier, we should be probably stretching, rolling, and then doing those exercises instead of just going, it hurts when I do this.
In a controlled fashion.
I can't do that.
Right, in a controlled fashion, and that's why you go to the gym, because exercise in a gym is a safe space, controlled, right? You have control of a lot of the variables. Right. It's when you get out in the yard and you start doing yard work that you don't have the variables, is when you're going to injure something. So you're trying to use the gym to strengthen your body for life, outside the gym.
Exactly. So after we have injuries, we do have an injury, we might need to go to someone like Dr. Peters so that we can get readjusted. What does adjustments do for us? Why should we have them? And what are there any downsides to it? Is there anybody that should not be adjusted?
Sure, good question. Body work is imperative, and I think as we age, we realize how imperative it is. 20 years ago, in my 20s, was I seeking out, other than the chiropractic care that I got, which I found very valuable. It wasn't like prior to the injury, I was getting massaged or going to see a chiropractor. It took an injury to be like, hey, you need an expert set of eyes on this problem. And it's just, just like maintenance in your car, a car is a complicated system that maybe you know how to put gas in it, how to drive it, and maybe change the oil. Most of us don't even know how to do that now. It's impossible to do this in the car, right? You're going to take it to an expert and say, hey, something it's not driving right, it's not feeling right, it's pulling on one side, it's making this noise, and you trust that their set of expert eyes are going to be able to figure that out and give you the product back, and you're going to be like, oh, it's fixed, right? Same way with your body, and I think we have a relationship with our body. We know when things are moving well or not, and a lot of times we're internally evaluating: is this an injury, or is it just hurting? And no, I got to keep moving. And sometimes we try to ignore it, and a lot of people are like, oh, it'll go away, and then 2 days go by, and then 2 weeks go by, and it's still there. You know, getting quickly a set of eyes on, or even telling your coach, right? Like, hey, this movement doesn't feel quite right. You might look at it biomechanically, oh, I suppose you got a weird angle here that you're trying that doesn't match up with this one, and you can correct that really quick. But I always tell people, if you have like a prolonged asymmetric pain, or you had a mechanism of injury, like you felt a pop or something, you know, it doesn't feel right, and it wasn't like that yesterday, and now it's hurting. Going anywhere, to a PT, a chiro, a massage therapist, having someone put their eyes, listen to your complaint, palpate and touch that area, and say, yeah, something doesn't feel right here. Here are my modalities: chiropractic adjustment, dry needling, acupuncture, you know, trigger point work, ART. There's a litany of tools that these people could get value from to get them back to training without any pain. So they're not like, now that, you know, after 2 weeks, they're not training as hard as they were. Maybe they missed some workouts, and whatever their goals were, they're just pushing those goals back and kind of hoping this thing resolves on its own. So coming and seeing someone like myself as a chiropractor, I'm going to look at the soft tissue and the joint, look for joint restriction. I'm going to ask them about their health history and do a thorough like chief complaint history. Like, all right, was there a mechanism of injury? The majority of my people that come in, there is no mechanism of injury. I will look up with this, right? And if I start asking the right questions, they're like, oh yeah, 2 days before, you know, I was walking my dog and it took off right and I tripped. And oh yeah, and I was like, oh, were you holding the leash with your right arm because you came in with right shoulder pain? They're like, yeah, I didn't think about that, right? And it's like, all right, and then, or they feel better after I work with them for a few visits, and they're like, the only time it bothers me now is when I'm walking my dog. I'm like, oh, I didn't know you had a dog. Oh yeah, and he's crazy, he's running all over. I'm like, well, no wonder your right shoulder is killing you for no reason. So they come in and I do that evaluation. I move them around a little bit, and I take into account their age and their past medical history. If they've had a surgery on that shoulder that they're now complaining of pain, it could be something that I might not be able to help. It could be residual from that surgery. They might need to go get some type of imaging and talk to an orthopedic, or go back to their surgeon and say, hey, you know, something happened and this doesn't feel right. It could be beyond my scope, but I'm going to figure that out through that thorough history. Obviously, you know, if they're older, right, and they have, you know, a history of atherosclerosis or something like that, I'm going to be very mindful of you know, particularly manipulations that might affect those vessels and stuff. Right? But I have treated people in their 90s, and some of those folks had been seeing a chiropractor since they were younger, and they still moved in their 90s like they were like 40, which was amazing to me. And then I have some 40-year-olds that come in that are so stiff and have not taken good care of their tissues. They let their sponge dry too much. Now they're so rigid, they can't move. There's just no mobility in there. I try to adjust them, and they're like, oh, this ain't happening. I gotta bring a mallet out. And it's like, oh, like if you would have came to me like 10 years ago, or you would have been doing your self, you know, mobility, some of these things can be prevented, you know, through just good lifestyle, you know, watching your posture, exercise, stretching, the heat and stuff that you can, most of that is just passive, like a heating pad, right? Just sit back.
It goes back to recovering as hard as we work out, right?
Yeah, well, you know, you're in the gym an hour and a half, right? It just makes no sense that time is more valuable than the other 22 and a half hours.
And then we only give them like 5 minutes at the end of stretch, and half the time they'll get up and walk out during that, and you're like, okay, I get that if you had to do it once, but every time, come on, and I'll stretch at home. You're like, okay, well then, welcome to your injuries, because they're coming. It's
live long enough,
it's gonna happen. It's not. It's not a if, it's a when.
Well, you know, people don't understand that. They think all the growth occurs in that hour and a half. No, your body is breaking down in that. You're not stronger on your last set than you were, you know, second set, right? You heal and grow. the other 23
That's
hours
exactly
of the day when you're eating and sleeping and really
And
truly
if you recover better, then you actually can work out harder. You
and
can
it's
go longer,
it's a
stronger.
positive
Yeah.
cycle.
Yeah.
Right?
So, but if you're not, then you're kind of putting the seal in there.
You're
on
taking
yourself.
one step forward in the gym and taking one step back at home.
Mhm.
And then think about that time factor. Now
Mhm.
it's taking you, 2-3 times, or maybe not even ever, to reach your goals. And you're like, why is this not working for me? It works. It does work. You have to focus on those other 23 hours of the day. Those are really important.
Let's talk a little bit about what the different. You do different things. I've had like dry needling done with you before. What are instances that people would need to maybe do something like that? Where can that be useful with this? So for dry needling, I think we did. For me, piriformis, right?
Yeah.
A lot of that. I think I even had to get
Gluteus,
into
QL. Yeah, those are very common low back, hip issues, tension, asymmetries that people will come in. And it's really easy, you're exercising, you take your mind off what you're doing for a split second and you set a weight down. Kind of weird, right? I never have people come in and be like, oh man, I had the best deadlift of my life, and then as soon as I put it down, oh my back, right? It's normally like, it was like I was doing high repetition XYZ, and it was on the first rep or the last rep that I heard. And that's either you weren't prepared to pick it up,
right,
or you were too eager to put it down, so you set it down in a fashion that caused some type of aching pain. Just like, like how did that happen? I could deadlift 400 pounds, but I was just putting this 125 down, and so during that evaluation, when the patient first comes in, I'm not only just looking for joint restriction, but I'm looking for the soft tissue signs and symptoms of rigidity, tension, muscle spasms, what we call trigger points, right? Especially like patients will come in and tell you, they're like, when I push right here, it just shoots down my leg or something like that. So they're telling me where the pain is. And so with the dry needling specifically, that's a trigger point, that's a protection mechanism that the brain is turned on to prevent you from doing further damage. It's there as a warning signal to say, don't move in this direction, right? And that probably goes back to evolutionary times where, like, if you had an injury, like if you weren't able to compensate around that injury, you're going to be food for some other animal, right? So our body's great about, this hurts, shift all your weight over here so you can compensate around these things. So I see like layers of compensation sometimes. So I go back to this chief complaint, it's my low back. And when I'm palpating the whole back, looking for joint restriction and what the tissues feel like, the paraspinal tissues that run up and down the spine, next thing I know, on the left side, up a little higher, there's a knot. And I'm like, what's that? And they're like, oh yeah, that hurts too. Either they didn't know it was there, or they're like, oh yeah, I had this injury over there once. And so now the low back could be coming from this initial thing that they've like said, I've worked through it, but your body has laid down these patterns, these spots that you've been avoiding, so you've been moving around that spot. So again, I can identify that by pushing on them and palpating them, and the patient will say, oh yeah, that's it right there. So with the dry needling specifically, we go and take the needle and agitate that trigger point, and it causes acetylcholine, which is a chemical that causes your muscles to contract, and that's what a spasm is, right? Your brain is turned up the level of acetylcholine in that area to protect you. Now I took the needle and agitated it, and it causes like a twitch response, and it essentially burns out the acetylcholine, and then your brain just puts back the normal level of acetylcholine back. So it's a way to communicate with the brain and say, calm this area down. We know that this is going on. I'm going to give the patient, or the patient's aware that I need to take it easy with these things and be very symmetrical with my movement for the next few days. And we just convince the brain that we don't need this mechanism right now. And I'll go back and also hit some of the compensatory stuff from the previous injuries sometimes too, wherever I find the trigger points that I think are valid trigger points, and I think this patient's going to get the best results. Because if I hit the most current trigger point, and they're like, they'll come back, after I follow up in a week, and that right side's been great, but now that old trigger point or this old spot's So I usually look for the two main ones that I can press on. They're like, oh yeah, that's the one. and I needle this, and I've had some pretty amazing results where people will come in crawling into my office, and I'm like, I don't feel comfortable touching you. Right? You need to go home, put some heat on this, rest for a day or two, and then come back to me. They're like, please do something, do something. And so I won't manipulate. Most of the time when that happens, they'll come in, I'm like, well, get on the table, I'm gonna massage gun, I'm gonna do some trigger point work with my hands, and then I might dry needle you just to get some of this calmed down. And it's pretty amazing. After that 15, 20 minutes of work, they walk out of the office. And they stand up, and they were kind of shocked by it. They're like, it's not hurting me, it's not grabbing me, like this is what's going on. And they're like, occasionally I have this low back pain like once a year, twice a year, and it puts me down for 2 weeks. And I come into you and just get this little needling. I said, well, don't be a hero. Don't go back out there and tell it.
Because that is the tendency, right? Is you do want to, as soon as the pain's gone, you're like, okay. And when I've had dry needling done with you before, I definitely did not jump back into things, but I remember saying to you, like, oh, it finally let go. Now I can actually stretch it. I couldn't even stretch because it was too tight. It was completely locked up, and I'm like, oh, good.
Your active care wasn't getting the job done because it was just beyond that point, and your brain was like, no, you're going to injure this. And that's when you need that expert. When your self-care that normally your body responds to isn't working, that's a good time to go see PT. Massage therapists, let them get their eyes on, let them work on it a little bit, and then what you should see after that is like, oh, my self care is working again. And then you kind of use us as like the only.
And that's exactly where I had gotten to, where I was doing my foam rolling, I was doing my stretching, and like it was getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and then I couldn't even get into stretching. So I'm like, I can't do this, and so it's like he shut that area down, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, now I can actually grab my foot, pull it back, and push my hip forward, so I can actually.
It's a reset, a redo. Your brain's like, okay, all right, let's let them sort this out. And, so that's been a.
Is there anybody that shouldn't? Is there any time that you should not have like dry needling done? Is there any population, any reason why they should not have it done?
Well, you got to be mindful of the area that you're really working in, right? Obviously, with needles and puncture in the body, you want to be mindful of the chest region, right? Because you don't want to go in between a rib and the lung or anything like that, right? So there are some. One, you want someone that's educated in it and certified in it, but other than that, I've used dry needling on my my elderly patients, young patients. It tends to be a little harder the younger they are, and if they know there's a needle involved, they're like, I'm not for this.
Well, and the thing is, the needle doesn't go in very far. That's what I think people don't understand that. They think of it as like getting blood drawn. It's like, not going in very
and it's a very thin, a fine needle too. Now, sometimes those needles do go in. It depends on what muscle we're trying to
QL has to go
right. So you're going to go in a little bit, but you also know what size needle, what length of needle to use, and you can a lot of it's through practice and feel. You know where you need to be, and you kind of don't. You're not trying to bury the needle into that muscle. You're just trying to get there and agitate, and you'll feel that muscle release. And it's and the patient will feel it. I will feel it. It's kind of surprising.
You'll see it actually. The whole for me when he would get in there and get the needle right on the spot, then all of a sudden that muscle would just start it twitches and twitches and twitches, and then it just stops.
And that's an indication that was a good one. And typically the harder it twitches, the better it works.
Okay.
So it's been a great tool. Probably had a patient 10 years ago now. He was a special operations Army guy, and I would see him for chiropractic care, and because his back, was busted on the military. He was a pilot, and and so he went overseas, and he came back, like a year later, and he's like, hey man, we had some PTs overseas, and they were doing this technique called dry needling, and I'm like, never heard of it. And he's like, yeah, they took this needle, of course, exaggerating, Army guys, exaggerating. Exaggerating, needles this long, right? They were sticking into my hip and it made my back feel better. I was like, that sounds horrible. And he's like, I swear by it. And so then after a couple of years, I started hearing my PT friends talk about it. It's really a PT technique.
Okay.
And when I went and got my certification, it was PTs that taught it. And so, and so I started hearing more about it, and I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And finally, I had some work done on myself, and I was like, this is amazing. I need to go get certified in this. Things that, you know, I just thought were my normal, like, oh, this is my normal ache and pain. It's always going to be here. It's been here for 5 years. I think it's going to go away. It just would clear up after driving. Oh, man, like, this is I need this tool in my 20s.
Right.
Wow. And I still weekly go and get acupuncture and dry needling. Just for, even if I'm feeling good, they can find spots. Like, you have active trigger points. Those are the ones that you don't even touch them, they're screaming at you.
Okay.
And then you go in and to my practitioner and I lay down. It's like, is anything bothering you? I'm like, I feel a little tension, but nothing. And he'll start palpating around. And then I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was there. And he's like, oh, that's one, right? So those are latent trigger points that are kind of under the radar. Wow. They've been laid down some point in time, but they're not active. They're not screaming at you. But those are those little compensatory patterns. And I've learned to you know, your body learns to kind of just move away from them. And of course, when I went for my certification, most of the therapists there were all straight out of college. They were in their 20s.
Okay.
And here I am, I'm the guy in my 40s. And he's like, well, right, we need a volunteer. Does anyone got knee pain?
I got it all.
And they're like, shoulder pain? Me. So I was a guinea pig the whole week. And like, they're poking. Oh, I didn't know that was there. And all these kids are like, I don't have these aches and pains. I'm like, you will.
You will.
As I'm laying there, you will.
They're coming.
But I just saw the value in, like, all right, so as a practitioner too, and as a chiropractor, most of the time I'm looking at the joints and specifically the spine, looking for restrictions, looking for what we call the subluxation complex of, you know, the joint isn't moving well, but that's affecting the soft tissue around that joint. It's affecting, there's pain involved, so that's the nervous system talking to us now. So it's not just getting the joint moving better, it's trying to calm that whole complex down, get things back in the right place, get the irritation off the nervous system, get it calmed down, and then restore normal muscle tone around that joint. And so with the dry needling, it's been a great tool to add for soft tissue, right? So I can get in there, and that trigger point might be a couple layers down, right? Not a superficial layer of muscle. Like the QL is like underneath some of the other back musculature, right? If I just rub over your QL, I'm really only touching the top surface of the muscle. That trigger point might be a layer or two down. It'll feel better because I'm kind of like paying it some attention, but I'm not going to get complete resolution of that trigger point. Well, with the needle, I can go through the top layer to the layer that I'm trying to agitate and actually touch that layer without having to go inside you and open you up. So it's a great tool to get inside to some deeper layers of tissue, restore the normal muscle tone, get rid of pain. Like they'll get up off the table and oh my God, I'm not in pain. Like, they're kind of surprised by it. So it's been a great tool. It is a great tool. It's a great.
What surprised me getting up off the table after having dry needling was that suddenly that actually it felt weak because it had let go so hard. I was like, whoa, I don't know if I can walk. It didn't hurt. There was no pain. It was just almost like that muscle was so relaxed at that point. I was like, whoa, I don't know if it's going to wake up and work.
Well, it does down regulate that tension in the muscle, right? So there's a perception of it, right? It's been high, and now that you feel it turn off, it's almost like too low. And that's why I tell people, Larry, it's not time to go and do box jumps. Needle your glute or something like that. It is time to put some heat on this, maybe go for a walk later, or let that healing process, run its course for about 24 hours. You might even be a little sore from the needling itself, and you let that calm down. Usually goes away about 12 to 24 hours, and you feel like you're reset like a day later. And then go back to your self-care, warm up appropriately, maybe, be a little more cognizant of your technique when you're using that specific muscle. Like make sure that it's working, like you have good mind control over that muscle.
Yeah.
I mean, we should do that all the time when we're exercising. We should be thinking about what we're
So be intentional.
intentional. I mean, the research shows that like you'll get more muscle growth by thinking about contracting that muscle than if you're just kind of going through the
That's
motions.
true.
And we've seen those people in the gym.
That mind-body connection that we're always talking about. So
Yeah,
really
mind-body,
think about
spirit.
the muscle that you're working. Let that muscle do the work.
Yeah.
Don't try to use everything else with it. Let's focus on that one. So one more selfish question
Sure.
for you.
Yeah.
Spinal decompression. What do you feel? What do you think about that? And what is your opinion of that?
Well, there's professional methods of spinal decompression, like getting on a contraption that kind of pulls you
That's
apart.
what I'm referring to.
Like an
Right?
old,
So do you?
like
do
an
you-
old torture, like two horses, tummy You know, I think there's a time and a place for it. I think if you're in acute pain, like you just had an injury and you start stretching tissues beyond what it wants to be stretched, you can cause more pain and probably slow the progression of your healing down. So there's a time and place. I think decompression is great for maintenance, and this could be getting inverted some way, like with some gravity boots or flipping upside down with like a decompression table where you control the angle and things like that, or even hanging from a bar, just relaxing your lower body and letting the spinal joints decompress naturally. We're constantly being compressed, and I think I've already shrank like a half an inch. You know, when I was in the Marine Corps, they said I was like 6'2", and now that my daughter is taller than I am, and she's like 6'1", and I'm like, wait a minute, I used to be taller than you. She's like, nope, you're 6 foot. And I'm like, how did I lose like 10 inches? But you know, over time, we get compressed. The disc joints that are between the spinal vertebrae, you know, when we're young, they're filled with fluid, and over time, if you looked at my spinal x-ray, some are bone on bone. Right? So I've literally lost height due to compression. Gravity's constantly pushing on us. Even when we exercise, those muscles are getting tighter. So that's another, just decompression could just be stretching long muscles, hanging from a bar. I usually get on our GHD machine and just hang over it and just, I'll twist a little bit, I'll just kind of sit there for 30 seconds, I'll take some deep breaths and really expand my rib cage because that inhalation pushes those discs apart too. Even proper breathing is decompressive, right? If you do belly breathing, you can feel the breath in your back and it's expanding you. So I think there's ways to decompress that doesn't require going and spend a lot of money or being on like a really super duper contraption. But I think it does get to a point where some people are in so much pain that maybe they're not ready for surgery. So they go to someone who has a decompressive table and they get on it, and that provides them some relief. But it's usually graduated. It usually starts out really slow. There's technology with it now that knows exactly how much pressure you put in. You're not just flipping upside down on a table. Now I've had patients like, to come in hobbling. They're like, I have a teeter hang up at home. Should I turn upside down on this? I'm like, no, not right now. Right. You know,
Well, it's a little less controlled too than if they were on the table.
If you go too far too fast, whatever you get out of that is what you're going to be left with.
So I recently had spinal decompression done, and so that was one of the things that the problem with the spinal decompression, at least to me, is the cost of it, right? Because for me, where I was going was they wanted a huge chunk, thousands of dollars up front. If I can pay by the time each time I come, that's fine. But to come up with $5-6 grand out of your pocket up front and not knowing this is how many sessions that you need,
or it's going to be guaranteed that you see 100%. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
Yeah.
But I will say I felt results from it pretty good. I only did 2 sessions. The first session that I did, it's a little scary to be honest with you. Like you're laying on the table, but it is all hooked up to computers and everything, so they're pulling it apart.
And then they maybe let go.
And then they let go, and then it pulls again. And the first session, they course, they said it, so like, we're not gonna push too far
Right.
on the first session.
You might not even felt that it did much at all.
I didn't think that it did
Yeah,
at
you're like,
first, right?
this is
Except
it.
for like when
It's
it
been
when it
out.
was happening, I definitely could feel it.
Right.
Because actually, ironically, the pain shifted from the side of my back that had been hurting to the other side.
Wow.
And I was like, what is that? But in my x-rays too, my back was,
Yeah.
the hips, my pelvis is completely, it's rotated to the side and to the front, so it's completely twisted. But I will say after that second one and had finished, again, they pulled harder that time, went a little further, did it a little longer, but I definitely could feel, I could move again.
Okay.
I felt the most normal then that I had felt in years. Unfortunately, it was just too expensive to keep the ones now back. So what I'm thinking is it does have to be something that's kind of ongoing. I think for people that have had a chronic back issue for years and years and years, probably like myself, who it's going to take a lot more than just 1 or 2 times to do that. And I could not get the same results hanging. I tried hanging at the studio, like with my elbows on, or on my elbows here.
How about over, do you have a GHD?
We don't have a GHD, but I tried to hook up around my Smith machine and having my feet up against the wall and kind of doing that. But maybe we need to get one of those, the GHDs. But
and I've used the ones where you're like the feet are up here, the same level as like the hip pad, and then the ones like that you'll go to Globo gyms and like the feet are hooked at an angle.
Yes.
As long as I can get draped over it.
Yes.
And sometimes like you can kind of pull on the leg of it a little bit. I don't try to yank and make anything hurt.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to add a little more distraction to the spine, and I'll do some light twisting. And I just try to, as soon as I get to my office, I'll try to do that right off the bat, just to decompress the spine a little bit. I have the gravity boots at home. I could flip upside down there, but putting them on, and it's like, I was like, all right, I don't have time today to do them. I probably should periodically do those, like find a frequency of once or twice a week to get some significant distraction of the spine. But I've used that in the past more for maintenance than getting myself out of pain. You just you don't know what too much can be until you go too far if you're in acute discomfort. So I think decompression is a great maintenance tool. And the ones that are really tech driven, I think those are good if you have some acute stuff going on. But
those can actually tell when the muscle is fighting back or not. So the one that I laid on, they actually would tell them like either my muscle was going no, and so they did it easy and long enough. Eventually that muscle would say, okay, we trust you, and it would start to let go so I could pull it. But it wasn't going to hit that then and then keep trying to pull, to your point, not knowing. If you're just hanging upside down yourself, you may not know, and you're still pulling it apart when your body's saying we're not ready for that yet. And at least with the decompression tables, they were able to go, okay, we're gonna stop there, we're give it a minute, and we'll ease it in there so we can actually get down on it.
And I think you just touched on this, like most people are hesitant by cost or the time it's required, right? So, but there's a lot of these physiological hacks that you can do at home that requires no money. Right, or little money, or money that you're going to spend already, like on food, making better food choices, shopping the perimeter of the grocery store instead of going out of the house. You can get as much good nutrition as the inflammatory nutrition with about the same amount, right? Will it look the same in volume? Will your basket be completely overflowing with the processed food and not overflowing with the natural food? Yeah, it's not going to look as much food, but the nutrient value of the good food compared to the stuff that's spilling over the edges of the cost is the same, but in
it's
the immediate time,
over quantity.
the cost is the same. But in the long term, eating the natural foods, you're not going to be spending as much money on your health or sick care later on.
Sick care.
Sleep and working around your sleep hygiene, like prepping your body to go to bed at night. So turning off overhead lights that kind of mimic the sun and start using like softer lights that are eye level. Even I found if I watch like an action show versus a comedy before I go to bed, the action show will keep me awake, right? So that's a choice that I make to say, okay, I need to watch something kind of light before I go to bed, or even read before I go to bed. Getting up in the morning, the thing that my wife and I started doing, we got the Hatch alarm clock, which about 30 minutes before the alarm goes off, a pin light comes on, and the light grows brighter and brighter and brighter over the 30 minutes. And you can schedule how long that takes, but it mimics the sunrise.
I like that.
And then when the alarm actually goes off, you're already almost awake, so it's not alarming. And I read that in a book, great book, Think Like a Monk, Jay Shetty.
Okay.
Great book, but he was like wake up to some peaceful sounds in the morning. I was like, oh my gosh, like I hate my alarm. When it wakes up, I'm mad.
Yes.
And then what do? I hit snooze and listen to it again. Like, why do I do this?
I've always said that though. I said it's easier for me to train those early morning clients in the summertime because when you're getting up before the sun all the time, it's so hard to wake up that way and just start your day, you know. But the days that I can wake, and when the sunlight changes, I will naturally wake up and feel rested. Whether I got 4 hours or 8 hours doesn't seem to make a difference. It's like how I woke up is what makes a difference. If I woke up to the sun coming up versus a dark room.
And there's even there's been apps out for years that it's like a seismograph on your phone, so it patterns you going in and out of deep sleep all night long. And I think it's called I can't remember what the app is called, but so it patterns you. And so let's say that you set your alarm for 6 a.m. but it's patterned you, and at 6 a.m. you're in deep sleep, and it knows if it wakes you up at 6, you're going to be in a bad mood. So it delays 5 minutes until you come out of the deep sleep, and it wakes you up in this less deep sleep, and you're not in a bad mood. And all it did was shift five minutes, but that waking up like feeling well rested and happy is way different than waking up miserable.
Because it lasts all day long.
And it could just be that time that you woke up. The alarm woke you up during that deep period of sleep. And your mind didn't like it, and all day long you're paying for it. So there's all these little gadgets that you can get to that kind of reads that, and that's that Hatch alarm clock, maybe $100 or something like that. But that's been pleasant to wake up to, and then I have my morning routine of getting the water with the sea salt, and then I'll read a little bit or journal a little bit. It's like a slow wake up versus like this sudden and it changed my mornings. Like I used to go to bed angry because I knew that in the morning I was going to be angry. I was like, why can I do this?
I'm already mad at it.
But reading that book, he kind of explained it. Like, when he was in a monastery, like trying to be a monk, like they went to bed when the sun went down, and then they woke up to birds and nature starting to chirp, and it was just a nice, pleasant, slow wake up. So some of these things are don't cost you anything. You just have to start practicing these behaviors to get the most out of your sleep. Like sleep is a big bang for your buck. Right? We need good sleep to heal and to recover and to have energy to go hit the gym hard.
That's right.
Your self-care, having a little routine in the morning where you wake up and you kind of moisten your sponge and kind of knead it and get it moving.
So on that topic, that's what's so hard for a lot of folks too, because even in my own life, I get up so early, and I'm at work before the sun comes up, and so it's really hard because you start going, well, then I got to get up even earlier, you know what I mean? And so that's where I think the struggle happens with a lot of folks. Is like, but if you're somebody that doesn't have to be at work until 8 or 9 o'clock, okay, cool, you can get up a little slower. If you have to be at work at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, then all of a sudden, like, okay, so I need to get up at 3, And so how do you do that? But you do have to adjust your night routine, to adjust that. But it definitely makes a difference, because I know just most of my mornings are just like that. The alarm goes off. I already had my clothes set out the night before because I'm not gonna spend not one extra minute getting ready. I'm literally just gonna throw on my clothes and run straight to work. And to your point with coffee, I do get that coffee later because I don't even make it at home. I wait till I get to work. I write the first couple clients' programs, I put the coffee pot on, and then by the time I start with the first client, that's when I'm having the first thing even enter my body. You know, because I haven't eaten, I haven't drank anything, but to your point though, it does feel very overwhelming. You go into bed mad and you're waking up mad because you know that those are my good sleeping hours, or like that's where I can feel myself fall into that deeper sleep, and it gets interrupted every single day like that. You know, so it's like, how do you adjust?
So you might have to adjust your sleep to a little earlier. The sleep that you get before midnight is twice as better than after midnight.
Wow.
So if you can get to sleep earlier,
That
that actually it's twice as good. So if you know the sleep from 10 to 12 versus 12 to 2, it's like getting 4 hours versus 2 hours.
Wow.
You feel hungover if you go to bed after midnight. Even if I go to bed at like 10:30 now. So trying to have a rhythm where every night you're at least climbing in bed and down regulating your body. And to your point of like, oh, when do I have time to do this self-care in the morning? What my friends and I, now that we're in our 40s and 50s, will say, what's the minimum dosage I need to get results, right? Not the maximum. I don't have 2 hours to do this now. So, you know, my morning routine probably started out 20 minutes long. And then I found that a couple things were redundant. So now then it was 12 minutes long. And then I was like, well, you know, I don't even think I need this anymore. So I've dwindled it down to 5 to 7 minutes. If I do that, I can have that off my plate.
That's doable.
So you have to find in a busy life, what's the minimum dosage with the maximum results? Not, I have a day to do this. Hopefully I can get this done. Right.
And I think too, just getting your mind right, getting your mind in order before you even take, for me, half the time I'm taking off, you know, it's just scattered. But to be able to have the time to either meditate or maybe I know you're a Christian as well, like have some prayer time or some read some scripture or something. I know David, you probably do that as well. But
and those things can be have it stacked. You know, I usually pray when I'm getting out of the shower. I know that I'm gonna take a shower, and I'll spend 2 minutes prayer right there, and that's just the routine, and I feel so much better when I do it. But then I know that that's my time to do it.
Sure.
And first thing in the morning after I do my water routine, I read like 5 to 10 pages, and I'll have a little timer out if I need to kind of be on point that morning. If I have a longer morning, like on a Sunday where I can sleep in a little longer, I might read a little longer too. But sometimes I think we can be we could be too rigid with our structure too. So you have to allow yourself some grace for going a little over and having to use this other time that you have allowed for something else to take care of your body. It could be different from day to day. It could be different from person to person. You might operate well under chaos. I do not. Right? And you might be able to hammer that out and push off your self-care until you get a break at 10 a.m. Some people have to start their day that way just to be able to handle the clients or patients right off the bat. Your body might feel pretty good in the morning and you can roll with it. So then trying to squeeze in
I just don't
extra.
speak to my first clients. They just know, like, no, we'll put 10 more pounds on, do 10 reps.
Well, and you got to think of like, just like when you're on an airplane, put your own mask on before you put someone else. Right? You're immediately going into nurturing mode someone else instead of nurturing yourself. And maybe that first client isn't getting the best you. Right?
Yeah, the first 3 are.
Should be better.
But maybe those clients respond to you not carrying on the conversation with them too, right? So if it works, it works. But regardless, you need to take care of your own body so you can continue to do what you love for a long time. This is your business. You've grown it. You've expanded. A lot of people count on you. That's a lot of pressure on you. You have to take care of yourself so you can give the absolute best of them. And it's hard to do by yourself.
It is. Do you have any questions, David?
Dr. Peterson, I just want to first say this information is the wealth of knowledge is incredible. And I appreciate your service to this
Yeah,
country.
thank you.
Yes, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
But also appreciate your service to mankind and what you're doing. And you know, it was interesting you said you call your mom and you talk about chiropractic because of, and I think she went because of an injury. Yeah, I was in a car accident. That was my first time that I'd ever gone to a chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
And and I believe I should be like 6 feet. I think I got a little curve. So I'm stuck. But I remember I was going to a chiropractor in Apex and also a friend in Durham. And I saw the curve here, and you know, I got the manipulations or whatever is done. Is there a period where you need to, because I still have back stiffness. Like I sit down for a period of time and I get up, it's like you kind of gotta get up and you still kind of bend. Right. Yeah, exactly. When you said that, I was like, gosh, that's spot on.
Good analogy.
Yeah, because and I remember him telling me my muscle was tightening, you know, and it was
To guard or to protect you.
right. And so everyone that seems to go to a chiropractor, it was an accident or something. And I think you may have asked the question, but should people just go anyway, or are there benefits just to going to?
I'm definitely an advocate for maintenance care.
Sure.
Right? Because a lot of things start to occur before you really start feeling it, or you got distractions that are, you know, not focused on something that's about to go awry, right? And that's when people come in like, I don't know how this happened. Well, you got distracted probably, and life happened.
Yeah.
And so sometimes just finding a frequency to come in and let someone with a second set of eyes get their eyes on you and start pushing around. Sometimes when they start pushing around, you find out, oh, I didn't even know that was there. I hear that a lot too. And so usually for my kids, my athletes that are not like in any type of acute pain, I'm like, hey, why don't you come in like every 6 to 8 weeks? I'll tell the parents that.
Sure.
Someone who's a little older but active, I'm like, come in once a month. And now that might be to see one of our massage therapists once a month, if that's what helps you. Right?
Sure.
You might have your favorite PT, and you know, funny enough, when I go see my PT, I use her as maintenance, but I don't think she's used to that, and she's like, well, I'll see you when the next thing pops up, and I'm like, no, I'll be back in here in about 6 weeks. Right. And she's like, okay. And so
he's planning his injuries.
I am preventing. I'm like, no, I'm sure I'll need you in 6 weeks, but I want to continue to work on this because I'm honest with myself to know that, you know what, I don't have all the flexibility I want out of this muscle, or there's an asymmetry. Right? Like I feel like I'm comfortable doing this stretch on this side, but not so on this side. There's something there. I want an expert's eyes on it, have her poke around on it and see. I still see my acupuncturist who does acupuncture, John Neal, on me once a week. Yeah. And I had aches and pains when I went to see him, but then I realized not only did those aches and pains clear up, but like other things like felt better. I'm like, man, I'm just gonna stay on your schedule to stay ahead of these things. Yeah. And you know, when a couple years ago, he got married, so he was gone for 3 weeks. I'm like, whoa, man. Tell me you're I need time. Like the plan was like 3 weeks. So by the time I got back in to see him, I was feeling some things. Yeah. And I get back in like, man, now I feel like we're starting over a little bit. Hey,
you're getting married.
Next time you're gonna be gone for 3 weeks, man. How about give me a heads up? I have to find a film here tomorrow. But I would rather stay on top of these things. So you're talking about your stiffness. Like if I don't get some body work done, that stiffness will really start to irritate me, and it'll start to impede my day. I will be focused on that instead of focused on my patients or whatever I want to get focused on. So I just feel like, all right, if here's my frequency that I need some work done, I'm gonna stick with it. If I miss a week, okay, I'm probably still good. And that's what I personally do for myself. But yeah, there's probably some maintenance in it, especially if you got good results from chiropractic care, and you know that that's a tool that works for you. Have them periodically, get manipulated, every 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or something like that. You'll know when it's time. And then I have some patients that they've had chronic sciatic pain, and they're like, I can't go 2 weeks without adjustment. I'm like, well, come in, let's just set it up every 2 weeks. Let's get ahead of this, and they will stay out of pain that way. Yeah. And that's specific to that patient.
Yeah, I remember getting the tension. It had my head hanging. So, and and so you mentioned something about like pain. Like I've been dealing with a shoulder issue. I don't want to make this personal.
Right.
But like I said, when did this happen? I mean, I was doing a lot of pull-ups at a lot of times. And I don't know if I hung too long or whatever. Or whatever. But that's kind of what's been nagging. And I remember one time to stretch out my back, I folded my arms and just tried to hang for a minute. And we tried things,
Right.
And I believe sometimes we tend to self-medicate or self-diagnose, like, oh, my coach back in the day told me to do this and do that, and I'm good, But I love how, education helps make your decision, and everything that you talked about comes from some form of education on sharing what you need to do. You know your body.
Yeah.
Some people don't know
Sure.
what you know, or even they're just like, oh, this is just bothering me. And so, what would you suggest? I mean, people need to just always try to, instead of always trying to figure it out themselves.
There's a lot of people disconnected from their body.
That's what I was about to say.
Wow.
People
Yeah.
disconnected from it, and it's shocking sometimes.
Yeah.
And really, I think it's a lack of education and experience dealing with themselves.
Uh-huh.
For example, like some people come in and they're like, I'm having this leg pain. I'm like, okay, is it in your quadricep or your hamstring? And they won't know what a quadricep or a hamstring is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in my head, I'm saying, your body is your vessel. The only thing you will own your entire life that you are 100% responsible for. You should know every part on it, what it's for, how it works, and how to maintain it. And I think this goes back, and I wanted to touch on this. It starts with educating our children, and we do a horrible job at that. It used to be the book, like your knee bones connected to your shin bone and so forth, right?
Yeah,
There were little things to educate, at least to know the nomenclature of their body.
Absolutely.
But now, like the lack of education, and or we divvy the responsibility of our care out to a physician or a healthcare provider that really you're a number.
Right.
They have patients waiting.
Right.
And they're, okay, this is probably this, or one of these three things.
Right.
Two of these things you can take ibuprofen for. Once you start there, and if it still bothers you, come back and see me again, right?
Next.
So what we'd be better off doing is educating ourselves how to maintenance ourselves early on.
Right.
And then you're in tune with your body. You're listening to your body. And when something comes up that's minor before it gets major, you're already doing things. And we used to have that. Grandma would put castor oil on this, or take this, or drink this tea with honey. Like, we used to be more in tune with that. I think we were more in tune with nature itself and how to find homeostasis in nature. Right? But now we have so many bells and whistles, lights, and technology that's distracting us. We're distracted from ourselves. We don't even want to be in this vessel. We'd rather be in the metaverse or somewhere else.
Yeah.
But the only way we make it through this life is in this vessel and taking care of it. If you want a life of longevity and potentially quality, but you got to have the mental happiness to have quality, right? You got to have the physical well-being to have quality. There's people with disabilities, people with injuries, permanent injuries, and some of those folks are the most happiest, resilient people you'll ever meet, and you're like, I envy you, oddly enough. You are just the happiest person, And it's like, all the hustle and bustle of life, they don't care, right? They just, their life is about being happy and keeping happiness surrounded them and being around happy people, and that grows, right? Just like if it's contagious, right? Or if you want to be a smoker, just go hang out with some smokers and now you're a smoker, right? So a lot of it is your choice, but I think we should be educating our kids so they have all that information to make better choices for themselves, and not just silo that off to a physician to take care of you. You need to be your own primary care physician.
You have to be intentional, which we talked about before. And you mentioned movement is medicine, and our first segment was
Movement is medicine.
and exercise is medicine. And a couple takeaways, the labels on food. That's a warning. I mean, it's and I saw a documentary one time ago that talked about how everything is processed. It's like our body is supposed to be the processor, right? But we know anytime it's in a box, it's probably not good for you. It was I also heard another seminar was talking about we think about our lifespan and not our health span.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the number of years you live, right? It's how healthy those years are.
Yes.
You know, and I think if you're not intentional about taking care of your health, someone's going to be intentional about taking care of your sickness.
Yeah.
You know,
And it won't be you.
Yeah.
You'll be outsourcing that to someone else. And hopefully you have a good sick care provider.
Right.
A lot of people don't get that.
I love
Even
sick
if-
care provider because that's what it is. You
Yeah.
maintain sickness.
It is. I mean,
Call it what it is, right?
We're great
Yeah.
at that.
Yeah.
We're great at trauma. We're great
Oh,
in
my
that
goodness.
field, right? If you have a severed arm, don't come for me to adjust your arm back. Go see the medical docs, but then get the heck out of there because you're probably going to get an infection being
Yes.
around
Yes.
some of the
So
bugs
true.
that are in those places. So
Yeah.
we have a purpose. We need to utilize it for the right things. But when big pharma, big food, and some of these corporations, it's money driven.
Yeah.
That dictates how our doctors treat us. And that's a shame for them. Like they're
It
highly
is.
educated people.
It is, right.
They've gotten in that profession because they mean well, they want to
Yeah.
help people, but then they get dictated on how they
Yes.
treat. And some of them
That's
get
the problem.
shunned if they go outside those
There you go.
lines. And that's not fair either. Like these people are highly intelligent. We should be
Yeah.
looking to them for information.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of good information is coming out from PhDs, right? They don't
Absolutely.
treat patients, but they do a lot of research. They can evaluate research, and they know what's good research and what's baloney research.
Mhm.
That's
And
right.
so I, follow a lot of PhDs
Yeah.
and listen to podcasts. So
Yeah.
they're getting the frontline information.
Mhm.
Some of the stuff that those medical docs learned in medical school were outdated in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
Even putting ice on an injury, the whole complex of that is called the Lewis-Huntington effect.
Mhm.
Like putting ice on it compress or constricts, and I think even one of those researchers said that don't do the rice anymore. Like he said ice isn't good. Like even one of the researchers said, that's not valid anymore.
Wow.
More research came out and
Mhm.
said, okay, this wasn't the right approach because of these reasons.
Yeah.
And even that researcher had the humility to say, you know what, you're right. We need to move on from that.
Mhm.
There's a lot of research out there like, no.
Yeah, they're
And
gonna defend it. They're
until
gonna defend it till
they
the
pass
end.
on, that will be the standard.
Wow.
Regardless of everyone knows that that's
Mhm.
not the approach.
You're resisting to the truth. You just
Well, those people are tenured. And they have their names in a bunch of journals, and people have applauded them, given them awards for that. It makes everyone look bad. Like,
Absolutely.
no, it's just we're human and we're learning as we go.
Evolving.
But don't dispute or throw away hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution where our body has figured out how to survive this innate immunity that we have. If you scratch your hand, don't go to the doctor. Hey, I got this scratch, doc. Can you give me something for it? He's gonna be like, go home.
Right.
Put a Band-Aid on it.
In 2 or 3 days, that thing's healed up itself. Our body has an amazing way of taking care of itself. If we're in tune and intentional and we know how it works, but we don't. We've been disconnected from that. And
What's
I think it's
interesting
supposed to
to
be
me-
industry. The industry wants you to pay for it. They
They
don't want
do.
you to know it. They want you to pay them
Yeah.
for it. I'm a little jaded. about
It's-
some of that.
well, we've had
Can't
many
tell.
discussions like that. What I
Am
think
getting a
is,
little hyper?
it's
My
funny.
face is
Come on, Doc.
It's funny to me that some people, when you even ask them what hurts, they don't even,
They
they
can't
can't
tell
even
you.
explain.
They can't tell you.
That's how
it feels.
disconnected with their body they are,
That's
is they literally
huge.
can't even tell
Disconnected from
you
the body,
what
yeah.
hurts. I'm not sure. What do you feel? Well, I'm not sure. Like, just like something just feels wrong. But you're like, well, I don't even know where to that. I thought about that when you mentioned it earlier, and I was like, the number of people that can't even tell me what's hurting them or how they feel.
Nothing.
That's
They
it's
have
not
no
even about
words
knowing
for
their
it.
quadricep from their
Right.
hamstring. It's literally about I don't even know if it's my leg that hurts or my head or my thumb.
Right,
or my,
right,
like
right.
what hurts? They don't. They're just that disconnected. That's crazy to me, but it's true because you said there's more people than what you realize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see it in practice all the time too.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, and I try to spend a lot of time educating my patients, and a lot of them will thank me for it. Like, you know, I went to a chiropractor once, you know, it was in and out, and they didn't really explain this, especially for the young kids. If parents are bringing kids in, I spend a lot of time like, all right, about posture, getting off their phones, sitting up tall, instead of tech nap, right? It's very common. I see these kids already hunched over. I'm like,
and if they're doing it now,
yes, it's gonna, like, they're gonna look like they have grandma posture in their 20s versus 50s or 60s, right? Grandma didn't wake up like that at 70. Like, it was slow postural changes over time, gravity wins. So if these kids are already not practicing, and they're not as active, they're not practicing good posture because of you know, not being educated about it. So I usually spend a lot of time with my younger athletes of how to take care of their body. Like foam roll. Do you foam roll? Do you warm up? Is your coach just warming you up prior to exercise? Oh, a little bit. And it was like, all right, well, maybe you need to do a little more at home before you get to the court or wherever. And I think the parents are thankful for that. But it really, parents should be modeling these things for their kids too. And I think even parents, you know, the machine is unplugged them too, right? So they can't teach their kids.
Right.
I think it's all this dependency that the society makes us have, so we have to go plug into an expert necessarily. But I think there's experts that want to facilitate good natural healing, and there's experts that just want to fix your issues, not tell you what happened, and if you need me again, come back.
Right.
And that's how
I'm your answer.
Right. It's godlike instead of like humility. You know, doctors used to be servants back in the day, and now they've become almost, you know, godlike.
Wow. It's good
Amazing.
stuff. It's good stuff.
It's good
So, like, this is probably the longest podcast we've had. I know we can like edit it.
This is like the number one already.
But it's almost like we need to like.
Oh, this is gonna be cut. This is pretty far.
Do another one as the part two.
Any one of these little things.
There's so many.
There's so much here that involves health and wellness, the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and I think it's about homeostasis. If you have that balance of mental, physical, and spiritual health, you're the healthiest ones in a bunch, right? A lot of people are just all in one and not in the other two, or they're out of balance. That's how our body works as far as just being in homeostasis and kind of, you know, being what I say rolling hills versus a roller coaster ride.
Sure.
Right. I'd rather be a rolling hills.
Absolutely.
It's more pleasant than, you know, you're gonna have times of stress, right? And you're gonna have to manage that a little bit, but you don't want it to like way up here and then drop. Like you just want, it's, you know, life's a little stressful. Like, all right, it's gonna come back around again and balance itself.
And believe it or not, that's harder than it sounds. Like, it's easier said than done. It's like you said earlier about being intentional about it. And I know one of the last times I saw you, we were talking about, because you were like, I'm at a point in my life where I'm looking to calm everything down, to really say, because so many of us do get into that routine of just going like, I just gotta go and go and go and go, and you just are mentally frazzled, physically frazzled, everything starts to suffer, and you clearly have found a spot where you can now, your homeostasis, right? You can kind of balance everything out, and a lot of us are looking for that. I myself have been looking for that for a long time, and that, like I said, it's easier said than done, because I'll just be honest with you. I just am almost at a loss of how to balance it all. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to get my Bible reading in. I'm trying to get my devotions. I'm trying to, you know, take care of my clients. But then, when am I going to get a massage? When do I get? I mean, no more often than I get to see, you know, Stu for even dry needling. Right? It's just like here and there. It's so hard to really put that whole package together. So kudos to you for being able to kind of figure out that formula, because it's not easy.
Well, I think you being an entrepreneur, and you know, I used to own my business. I just outsourced my stress to someone else when I sold it. And then I could go to work for them. Like, it's hard. You being the face and the person, it's on your shirt. Body by Dawn. It's not body by anyone else, right? And people expect that. And that's a lot of pressure on you. You have to, you know, outsource some of your stress, to people that you can count on.
He's got some of that stress,
which is great, but that's still like, you know, but it's important to find that time for yourself, or your health will suffer.
That's right. And we can't help others. like we want to. And that's where I have found lately that I've gotten to is like I can't even help the people that I want to help because either my brain is just so like done, I can't even process what I need to feed you the information that I need to get you, and I can't think straight because I'm so tired, or I've got 15 other things going on in my brain that I gotta figure out before I can even get to you. And it's like we're almost doing ourselves and them a disservice until we can figure that out and find that.
Well, I think, you know, there's a dichotomy to like technology, right? I think too much technology can be bad, but then technology can be good too. And you know, maybe you feel, this is my assumption, that you need to be on call for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas maybe you can, you know, divvy out some time where you are artificially on call. Maybe now they have like AI apps where they'll answer questions in your voice, in your face likeness with pre-programmed questions, right? They know how to search for these answers, or you videotape these questions and answers, and you have online, and you just simply, I'm gonna shoot you a link, watch this video, and I'll answer all your questions. So you can break away from always being on call. That's hard to be in the face of the business, the person's part of the business, right? So somehow and I don't love technology all that much, but I know there's value in trying to figure those things out.
You know, that's where I've tried to navigate into that, but the backside of that is also, it takes time then to figure out the technology to know how to set it up in the first place. Because like my 8-week program now, we've got, 200 and some videos now of me actually performing every exercise and walking them through. So when my clients can't train with me that day, we don't make up their session. I send you the link to the videos. Here's each exercise I want you to do. Here's the video to each one, because it's not just you watching me do it. It's me literally what I would do with you in person and say, make sure your elbows are here, make sure you don't do this, make sure you do that, move this to that, that kind of thing. But the amount of hours that it took to set up that technology in the first place, right? So then you go down this rabbit hole of like...
I just saw an advertisement on Instagram where you can create your own app that has an AI likeness of you, and essentially it'll give them the answers that they're seeking in your voice, in your likeness.
Your likeness, that's
right. And I don't know how much they just kind of scour the internet and find that answer for them, which might not be the right answer, or do you have control of the answers that maybe they search your catalog of criteria on your YouTube.
That's what I was about to say. So a couple of years ago, I used a marketing company that used AI technology, and so they would make all of the appointments and the people would then show up. Well, the AI was so good even back then that they could like talk back and forth with it, and they would ask questions. The client would ask questions like, "Well, what do I wear?" And AI would answer back and say, "Well, just wear, some tennis shoes and comfortable." And then they would say, "Well, I've got this shoulder problem," and then it would answer back and say, "Okay, well, I understand that you've got an issue with your right shoulder. We'll work on that when you get here, and we'll talk more about it." But the problem with it is, I didn't read any of that. These conversations went on, and they were communicating with about 50 different people at one time for me, right? So then when they come in for their appointment, they're like, "Well, you remember when I told you I had that?" And literally the AI sometimes would even say things about like colors or something. It was like, "Well, the orange something or another." Well, they come in and did laugh and talking to you like, "Well, you remember you said something about the orange blah blah blah." And I'm like, and it's like you're totally out of the loop. And you have no clue. That's the other side. That can be very tricky, it answered for you, but you have no idea what it told them. Unless you go back then, now you have the ability to do that. You can go back in there and read all of those conversations that AI had with them all. But are you going to do that with every client?
How do you keep up with 50 different people?
Exactly.
Wow. That's the downside. It's getting better. I mean, it's I don't know what my kids will have to put up with, encounter as they get older. I'm glad I used to when I first was introduced to social media and stuff. A friend of mine was in marketing, and she's like, "You're not on social media." And this was, I don't know, 15 years ago. I was like, "No, I don't want to be on social media." She was like, "You have to be on social media. I just went to this seminar. Here's all my paperwork. Well, we'll get you set up." And I was like, "Ooh, this is overwhelming." And I remember looking at my parents and you guys are so lucky. You guys don't have to deal with any of this. this.
Yeah.
Or it's a choice, right? To
Right.
just get on Instagram and see some pictures of your grandkids.
Right.
You don't have to utilize this for a living, right? I'm so jealous of that.
And all of them.
Yeah.
Instagram,
Oh,
the TikTok,
all.
Facebook.
Yeah.
And so
LinkedIn.
now it's like I'm almost where I don't need it. Almost.
Right.
But my kids, that's
Yeah.
going to be their entire life.
Yeah,
They're going to be
yeah.
immersed in it.
They said
Yeah.
you're not there, you're not anywhere, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's almost it's
Yeah.
almost forcing
Yeah.
you, like, because we were resistant to doing it, and it's like
Mhm.
it's forcing you to do it, to play the game. You have to,
Yeah. I will say that's when my business grew though. For years, before Facebook, it was just like a struggle to get clients. You know,
Yeah.
but to get your name out there, and and the word of mouth is a lot slower than Facebook or an Instagram post that then goes viral, and all of a sudden you've got 1,000 people hitting it.
Right.
Like it would have taken years to get to that point, you know. And so it's like it's sped things up so much. So it's good and bad.
It's good and bad. And that's how everything is really good. There's goods and bads to
Yeah.
both, and you have to find the balance in between and utilize it for what you need it for, and don't get over consumed by it. And then so again, it goes back to balance. Everything
Yeah.
in balance.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, because society is pushing you,
Yeah.
and you know, if you could just
Breathe.
hibernate somewhere,
Yeah.
go be a monk somewhere. You don't have to worry about it.
Think like a monk.
It's like a monk. Great.
Did you have any other questions for him?
No questions, just comments. This has just been amazing information.
Yeah,
And I
thank
believe
you.
people that's listening to this will gain a lot of knowledge from what's been said. And I just thank you tremendously for this.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge.
Gotta get it out there.
And you have to use it. You have to use it.
Yeah, you have to use the knowledge.
Dr. Stu Peters, you
Thank
guys,
you. Thanks, guys.
and
Enjoy
out
it.
of Health Solutions, North Carolina, which is
Yeah.
in
Apex.
Apex, North
Yes.
Carolina, so not
Check
far
them
from our
out.
studio, maybe 3-5 minutes from our studio.
Yes.
But yeah, look up Dr. Stewart Peters. Thank you guys.